Thank you so much for having me talk today on why Nordic Walking for Parkinson's. And I understand that you guys already do have a pole walking group going, so hopefully I can give you a bit more research and understanding about why we use it here in Canada as for best practice for rehab and for wellness programs, and maybe we can bring on some new people as well. So as Lauren already mentioned, I'm an occupational therapist and gerontologist. I'm coming to you from my living room in North Vancouver, Canada, a little early this morning. And I would say while the poles are used for all different conditions, we've been using them here in Canada for the last 15 years. Best practices for lots of different conditions. I would say the people who call me the most, who phone and email and talk about, in their words, life-changing effects, is people with Parkinson's disease. And so it's one of my favorite topics to talk about. And as Lauren mentioned, I've done a lot of different conferences in the US, more the Davis-Finney, PMD Alliance, Parkinson's Foundation. So just to give you a little bit of a background, it was actually introduced to me by my Swedish neighbor. And I think we can agree that the Scandinavians, particularly older adults, are one of the healthiest cohorts on the planet. And I wanted to find out, what are they doing? At the time I was studying gerontology. People asked me, what is gerontology? It's really the study of healthy aging. And my neighbor basically said, first of all, the Scandinavians are the healthiest people on the planet because they just walk. They literally walk to the corner store and visiting their friends. It's actually part of their culture. So I found that fascinating. Think about all the things we do to stay healthy. And one of them is just walking. But she said also, people add poles to their walking. It's called generic name is Nordic Walking. It's actually part of their culture, whether you're a preschooler, it's used by their Olympic team for their summer training program, for their cross-country ski team, a working mom, older adults. So I had never heard of that concept before, just using walking poles around your neighborhood. And when I looked at the research, what is amazing is that there are 300 studies listed on PubMed. So PubMed is our resource for good quality research, right? Peer-reviewed. And there are 18, this changes every month, specifically on Parkinson's. And so what I found is that it was hitting the key goals that I was looking for rehabilitation for Parkinson's. So, you've got the poles on both sides of your body, right? So, of course, you've got it there for the balance. When you push down on this ledge, it forces you into that upright posture. A lot of times when you have Parkinson's, you have that shuffling gait pattern. You tend to, walk more with a stooped posture. You don't move your arms very much. And in terms of walking, you walk faster. It pushes you forward. So your stride, you step further, you normalize the way you walk. Why is that so important? Well, what the research shows is the more normal you can keep your walking pattern, the less likely you're going to sustain a fall. And it also pushes you forward. So that's how it actually helps you for increasing your speed, right? So every time you step forward, you're actually going to push on the handle here. And that's actually going to get into a really nice rhythm. And a lot of people say that really helps to prevent them from freezing coordination. So what we did here in Canada was, when we started to introduce it 16 years ago, is we looked at, okay, how do you take that concept and let's just look at how do you revise that, both the pole and the technique, so it's safer and more effective for people with Parkinson's. And we primarily focused on the core grip. We made it ergonomic, and we designed it so that it's the ledge here that you're going to push down on for that balance, strength thing I talked about later is you're going to push on that for forcing that upright posture. And we actually now have 18 independent studies on the poles. But what I want to really talk to you about is, well, what are the goals you want to achieve, right? I think sometimes as a therapist, we get very focused on rehab goals, but what are the goals you want to achieve? And hopefully through this presentation, we can really focus on that. So as an OT and working with people with Parkinson's, what I've heard from them is that they want to feel more confident while they're walking. They want to be able to, particularly right now, get outside and socialize with friends. So one thing you can do with walking, one of the few recommended activities here in Canada, as long as you've got this, your social distance, you can still walk together. They want to get back to traveling. So it's just such an easy, convenient thing. You can put in your suitcase or you can walk up through security with it. It's not cumbersome like carrying a big walker. Of course, they want to look at the factors for preventing falls. And you probably know as an OT, we're obsessed with how to prevent falls. I'll talk to you about that. Staying active, just being able to walk further. And of course, they just want to feel good. They want to be motivated about being active and of course, just improving your overall mood. So I thought the best person to kind of take a look at some of those benefits is Larry Guilford. Larry runs a what I would say is an internationally world recognized podcast called When Life Gives You Parkinson's. So as you can see, Larry is quite young. He's got 2 young kids. He's married. He runs an exceptional podcast. If you have an opportunity to listen to it, it just has a ton of strategies about how to manage it with Parkinson's. His wife's out there, so she talks from a caregiver standpoint. He also runs the podcast for the Michael J. Fox Foundation. He's going to be the Parkinson's ambassador at the next World Parkinson's Conference. Anyway, and also, sorry, just one last thing. He is the founder for PD Avengers, which is really looking at what is a solution for how to cure Parkinson's. But anyways, Larry interviewed me not too long ago. I think this played about a month ago because he kept having falls. I think he had 3 falls in a few months. So he had to look at, well, what are some strategies that he can do for preventing falls, and using our activator poles was one of them.
The activator poles should be called confidence poles.
I love that.
Because it really is for at least for me, it's what gives me the confidence to go into a crowd, to go through an airport, to go on a hike, to take a longer walk. Yeah. Like it gives me enough certainty to say yes. So thank you for making them.
Oh, well, thank you.
So I love that description, confidence poles. Here's another person who's Rob up in Northern Canada. And basically, he's got here that he got a pair of the poles. He walked and walked and walked. My brain has developed a neural pathway for walking and other noticeable changes, improvements in stride, speed, mood, an absolutely game-changing experience. I just wanted to say thank you. And that is Rob. So what are we going to be talking about today? Introduction to the activity, basically a quick research review, just show you how we changed the technique for balance and offloading and for stability. And then there's another technique, which is more the traditional Nordic walking. We've coined it here as Canada's urban polling for increasing intensity for the early stages. So different techniques depending on what you want to achieve. I'll show you how to use it for seated and standing exercises. I'll just summarize where you can obtain the activator poles and a Q&A. Okay, so what is it? Basically, it is your upper body doing a technique somewhat similar to cross-country skiing. So I found a lot of these people in the States aren't too familiar with cross-country skiing, but just so you know, the reason why there's so many health benefits is cross-country skiing actually provides you with the highest cardiovascular workout. And then your lower body is just walking. But basically, we were to summarize it, you're walking with specialized Nordic walking poles. So you're getting a workout, but for a person with Parkinson's, from your perspective, you're also getting the balance, right? And you're getting strength training, and of course, perfect for this during this time when you want to get out. So let's kind of just look at what it looks like. Okay, so for some of you who've already got doing the pole walking, I think you're already familiar, but hopefully if you're new to it, you kind of got an idea from there about, you know, what it looks like, and particularly it's great to do it in a group situation, particularly because I know it is a fairly new activity to the US and people just feel more comfortable when they can do it in a group situation. So let's just look at those benefits again. When you're walking, I love to walk, but you're primarily using your lower extremity muscles when you're walking. But when you add on poles, you use 75 to 90% of your muscles. So the bonus for that is you're going to burn between 20 to 46% more calories. And of course, right now, during the pandemic, with us all being so sedentary, put that down as being a bonus. And it's really effective for core strengthening, right? I'm sure you always hear fitness instructors and therapists, we're always talking about core strengthening. Why is that so important? Well, if your core or your abdominal muscles are really strong, of course, that makes a huge difference in terms of your ability to walk safely, your ability to transfer, sit to stand, and your overall health. In fact, right now, what they're saying is if you look at the studies related to diabetes, cardiac rehab, obesity, it's actually waist circumference, or your abdominal, that is more important than your actual weight. And so I think people I get out, you walk faster, etc. But how does it target your core? So if you don't have poles, just put your hand out as if you're giving me a friendly handshake. You do this demo along with me. Land that on top of your desk or the back of a chair. You might want to stand up. And I'm going to press on this ledge so you can actually see how it works in terms of the pole. And basically, what you want to do is put one hand on your abdominal muscles, and every time you push down on that ledge, as you step forward, hopefully what you're feeling is a contraction happening in your abdominal muscle. So what it means, how do you translate that into what is happening? Well, let's just give you an example. If you were just to work 1 mile, you would get 1,800 contractions in your abdominal muscles. So it's not just about walking, it's also about that strengthening and particularly in your core. Okay, let's look at the research. As I mentioned, 300 studies overall in walking poles. We got 18 just on Parkinson's. We've got 18 on our activator poles. So this is a study that I usually present on when I've presented internationally. So there was 3 different randomized control study, which means you've got a control group. So we've had 3 different groups. One of them just did walking, that all these groups have Parkinson's. One group just did walking, one group did flexibility and balance exercises, and one group did Nordic walking. And what they found was that, of course, everybody improved, right? Those are all great strategies: pain, balance, quality of life. However, let's look at the group that used Nordic walking poles. They had better posture stability, they increased their stride length, their gait pattern normalized, and less gait variability. Remember, that's related to less falls, less risk for falls. And I want to use Bill Truen. Bill Truen is in his 70s. He's got Parkinson's. If you can believe it, he's actually completed 23 half marathons with using the walking poles because he feels like they push him forward. He gets really nice speed. He doesn't get the freezing. But the reason why I put this testimonial is because some people ask me, how does it work when you're not polling? And what Bill had said was, I noticed the benefits stayed me for several hours after polling as well. Okay, unfortunately, with any chronic condition, mood and depression are affected. And we actually used the polls for mental health here as well. And mental health, chronic conditions, but it affects all of us too. Let's be real. So what it shows is, increases patients' physical activity, improve their mood, less fatigue, decreased depression and anger compared to walking alone. It's also used as an effective alternative to canes. I've got my boyfriend Brad Pitt over here now that he's available, showing you how it works with a cane. So when you're using a cane, if you look at the way Brad is standing, it actually shifts your posture, right? You're leaning to one side. Your wrist is in a hyperextended position. That places the greatest amount of stress on your wrist joint, particularly if you've got arthritis, repetitive strain injuries. You are changing the way that you walk in terms of your arm swing. Whereas when you are using poles, it's the same pattern as normal walking. It's just opposite arm and leg, right? It's really mimicking that normal pattern. If you talk to your therapist, your neurologist, it's also a way that you can delay or reduce the way that you're using a walker. But again, I just really want to emphasize, I know most people on the webinar today, I often give webinars where it's to a physical therapist. You do want to discuss that with your therapist. You certainly can't just, if you've been using a walker, move over to using walking poles. You do need to build up balance, strength, and adjust your posture in order to do that. So which brings me to contraindications. I've talked to you a lot about how it's a great activity, but again, if you are using a walker cane, go see your therapist. Now, she may recommend keep using your cane and walker as your primary walking tool, but you may be able to have the opportunity to use your poles for daily walking where you can really focus for that 15, 30 minutes on your walking ability. You don't have to concentrate all day long. And, or you can use it for season standing exercises, which I'm just going to show you later on. If you have, if your walking pattern is really affected in terms of coordination or ataxia or dysphasia, then it may be more of a tripping hazard rather than helpful. So again, talk to your therapist regarding that. And if you're past the mid to late stage, again, another time you want to have a discussion with your neurologist or therapist regarding it. Okay, so let's just talk about, so what we did was we designed our activated poles to keep your wrist in a neutral position, ergonomic, and as I mentioned, you want to actually keep a really loose grip, and it's all about a downward force on that ledge. So why Nordic walking poles with straps are not recommended? There was a large-scale study that was done by Dr. Knobloch in Germany, And what they found is that Nordic walking is safe for the general population. Of course, when you've got different chronic conditions, you're more at risk for falls. But what they found is that most injuries occur during a fall when you're still attached to the pole with the strap, and the highest rate of injury is skier's thumb. So we also changed our activator hose with a button lock system instead of a turning lock. And we put on this bell-shaped tip that keeps your pole more in a vertical position. In terms of, here is another testimonial from Twitchy Woman. It's a blog that was actually rated one of the best blogs for Parkinson's by Stanford Health. And she's got here that when she started using the poles, I was moving more quickly with purpose, more upright, thanks to poles being adjusted to the right height. When I go out my arm on my walks using the poles, I'm using my legs and arms. So I'm getting a much better workout than I would just going for a walk at a leisurely pace. Now, what we did was we actually changed the technique as well. So what I would suggest is if you are in a stage where you want to use poles primarily for balance, so there's two different ways. You can use it for balance or you can use it for a fitness activity. What I would suggest to you is keep the pole vertical. Okay, just think of it this way. When I want to have balance, vertical. When I want to have speed and fitness, I'm going to put my poles more at a diagonal in the traditional Nordic walking way. Okay, so in the earlier stages, you might want to do more of the Nordic walking, but if you are more concerned about balance, keep that pole vertical. Let me just show you what that looks like in this video. I'm just going to hold it there because I think it gives you a really good idea of some of the walking pattern changes that happen when using the poles. Did you notice that when she wasn't using poles, her arms were completely motionless? She was just keeping them at her side. She was looking down, right? And when you look down, your balance indicators don't work as well. So you can see here in terms of her posture, she's actually lifting up her head, looking more forward. Did you see how much she was using her arms? Why does it matter if you use your arms? Your arm swing is really important in terms of balance as well. And hopefully what you saw, bigger stride. Right now, if you look at our principles for rehabilitation now, before, I remember as a therapist, it was all about gentle movements. If you had Parkinson's, just do what you can. It's the total opposite now. It's like, no, we want you to do large, big movements. That's going to get you away from that shuffling gait pattern, right? We want you to move your arms. We want you to look at her legs stride. We want you to bring your legs out wider. So what I would say to you too is whether you use the poles all the time or just for exercise, use them as a way to train yourself how to normalize your walking pattern. So whether using the poles or not, remember, we want you to look up. We want you to use your arms and we want you to have nice, big leg stride. Okay, so one last thing. Remember, as I mentioned, as a therapist, I am obsessed about falls. What is one of the reasons why people fall? Is with that shuffling gait pattern, you are basically not lifting up your feet, right? And one of the primary reasons why people fall is that if you walk flat-footed, have you ever had this happen? Your foot gets caught on sidewalk cracks, changing in the flooring, right? Hardwood to rugs. That is because we're not lifting our feet. And one thing people I noticed immediately as a therapist, when I put poles in people's hand, I was like, wait a minute, why are you lifting up your feet? And people said, because I just feel more, I feel more confident. I've got balance on both sides. And so that's another thing that you really want to try to maintain, whether you are using poles or not. Okay, so let's look at the other technique. So if you are in the early stages, you've got mild symptoms, you really want to get out there and still do more of a fitness activity, then I'm going to suggest that you do more of the traditional Nordic walking technique. Now, if you look at a study that has been done in 2018, what they found is if you are in the early stages where you just have mild, issues with balance, perhaps you're not using you don't need to use anything for stability. You can have optimal benefits if you work at 80% of your maximum heart rate. Again, talk to your doctor about this and your physical therapist about adhering to this guideline. For different reasons, they may not want you to go up to that 80% of maximum heart rate. But basically, what using poles does, it really just turbocharges your walking. A lot of people call it power walking here in Canada. And the difference is that, remember before I said, keep your poles vertical for balance. In this one, and maybe this is the way more your group is doing it, your pole is actually going to be on a vertical. And do you remember earlier I showed you we had that, bell-shaped tip? That kind of forces the pole into a vertical position. But when you are doing the true, Nordic walking technique, you actually have a little boot. And this boot should be facing backwards, okay? The reason why is you want that boot to roll you forward for that speed, okay? And this boot puts the pole in that diagonal, and that's what's going to really push you forward for that increased speed. If you want to look at the videos, we do have them on our website, urbanpoling.com, that shows you how to adjust your poles and how to do the two different techniques. If you already have the pole with the bell-shaped tip, you can pull it off and you can put on the boot shape. So you can do both techniques. You're not required to have two different types of poles. You can do, and this is what it looks like. Okay, I just want to stop it right there so that just like I showed you before when I showed you the activator technique from a side view, oh my goodness, look at these ladies stride. And see how that pulls on a diagonal? Hard to see, but that little boot is facing backwards and her arms are straight. Remember before when you saw the one with Parkinson's, her elbows were bent. In this one, your arms are straight. And so hopefully that video just gives you an idea of how you can turn your walking into power walking. And one of the reasons why it's so popular as a fitness activity, because what I found is I don't really like to jog, but what they found is that your perceived exertion is really not different than you just doing brisk walking. Okay, so let's talk about, I talked to you earlier about traveling. How do you walk on the trails, sand, snow with your poles? What you want to do is you want to pull off the tip, and underneath is a carbide steel tip. Okay, so that's what I would suggest. If you are I don't know if you guys get snow. Do you guys get snow? Maybe a thumbs up, thumbs down? If you don't,
Certainly
sort
not
of?
enough
Okay, I'm getting a
to
sort
go
of.
walk in, right?
Pardon me,
We get
sir?
a little dusting every once in
A
a while.
little dusting. Okay, so we don't need to worry about that. Okay. But let's, if you're on sand, you're on trails, do take it off because you will get more stability if you use the carbide steel tip. That's the tip that you'd normally find in a hiking trail. Okay. And I would say to you, even if you are doing the fitness technique, when you are in sand, gravel, hiking, go back to doing the activator technique because you're going to get more stability. And when you're walking on different terrain, of course, it is more challenging in terms of your balance. Okay, so let's look at standing and seated exercises. So I would say initially, we used it mostly just for fixing your walking pattern or as a fitness tool for walking. But I would say right now, therapists here in Canada use it just as much for seated and standing exercises for very similar reasons, right? When you've got the poles, you're doing a standing, let's start with standing exercises, right? You've got that support. You know, I think lots of times when you're doing an exercise, that's when people tend to, relax their posture. No, when you're pushing down, it forces you to do that really nice posture, whether you are standing or sitting. When you're leaning forward for those seated exercises, you can put the poles up front. So you've got that support for balance and you've got more confidence. Remember I was talking about doing those big movements when you're doing exercises? Well, if you got poles on both sides of your body, you're going to feel more confident to really do big movements. The poles provide your brain with a visual, a sensory. They can feel it you can feel it in your hands. You can hear it. So it's a great cue in terms of when you're doing what we call bilateral or movements with both your arms, right? Because your brain, it's just another cue for your brain to really focus, particularly oftentimes with Parkinson's, you do have a weaker side. So how do you really focus on that weaker side during exercises? You want to do those together. And also it makes exercises less abstract, right? Instead of like, oh, move, bring your hands up to the ceiling. It's like, take your poles, bring that up to the ceiling, bring your pole, bring that forward. So how to making your exercises more, less abstract. So let's just kind of look at what it looks like in a group situation.
Add the other arm, why not? Heels. One more. Change direction. Have those heels popping up and down.
Fits in with the class.
That's right. How are you feeling, everybody? So good. Up on those toes. Beautiful job. You guys are fabulous. Eyes are up. Two to go. Excellent, everybody.
Enthusiastic fitness instructor there. But hopefully you saw, particularly in that last exercise, how the support really helps you to do a large movement for exercising. Okay, so we're basically at the end here. What did I talk to you about today? The fact that the activity is evidence-based. There are 18 studies on PubMed that you can look up on Nordic Walking and Parkinson's. We've got 18 on the activator. Again, just remember before I leave, keep your poles vertical, which is like the activator technique. We've had 2 studies that have been done on the activator technique, showing that better ability to actually put weight on a pole when it's vertical that weight bearing for balance. When you really want to do a workout, move to that urban pulling Nordic walking technique in the early stages. And you can use poles for exercising, for improving posture, balance, bigger movements, and support. So as I mentioned earlier, the videos on the activated urban pulling technique are on our website. And if you're interested, there's also, I've just included here how you can obtain them as well. Okay, so just want to leave it off with Harry McMurtry. Harry McMurtry has Parkinson's disease. You might have heard of Harry. He actually walked from New York City to Toronto. His campaign was called 500 Miles for Parkinson's. And what he found in the early stages was that after walking, I believe it's 13 miles per day, Harry actually fell a few times, and then a therapist got him poles. And what Harry said was it was a game changer because he never fell again for the rest of his event. But his therapist also really noticed it really improved his walking pattern, helped to normalize it. And so that would just end off with him saying it being about a game changer. And so that's just a news clip on Harry, but I'm just going to leave it so we've got enough time for questions.
I'm going to, yes, remember you're muted. So if anybody wants to ask a question, you can, excuse me, make sure that you unmute. And one of the things that I found interesting, the benefits of it, not just for helping balance, but it's a better workout. Like I was really surprised when you shared the to put your hand on your abdomen and push down, that it actually did change the way that you are. I walk every day.
Okay.
Pretty significantly, usually 4 or 5 miles a day. And so, just considering it, not because I have balance issues, but that it would enhance the workout. I used to run and can't run anymore. My knees don't like it. So how do I make that a better workout? So that was something that was interesting to me that I didn't know.
Yeah. And thanks. What a great point. Because so many times people think it is just about a balance and they don't realize there's a ton of other benefits. And you might want to stay tuned at 12 o'clock. I'm actually giving a talk with the Arthritis Foundation. And they have asked me to give a talk on exactly that. Why would you use it for hips and knees? And often people, with Parkinson's have issues with hip and knees. But so same principle, Lauren, is that when you're pressing down on that ledge, you're also offloading anywhere between 11 to 34% is what the research shows off your hips and knees. So if people here also have the issue with hips and knees, good to know that will also take some of the pain off.
Well, and we talk a lot about making sure that you have a strong core to help with balance. It's something I know we've talked to members about before. And you think, okay, I want to improve my core. I don't want to do sit-ups.
Exactly.
So what's a different way to get my core without having to lay down the floor and do sit-ups? So I think all of those are really just interesting things that I wasn't aware of. Does anybody have any other comments or questions for Mandy, or just personal experience?
I sent some questions via chat.
Hey, it looks like there's quite a few in the chat section. Do you guys just want me to read those?
And answer them, please.
Sure. Okay. So someone's got here, are all poles the same length? Okay. So just so you know, you can get fixed length poles, or you can get adjustable ones. So you just need to, look those up. And basically, I don't recommend fixed length because you can use your poles for so many different things, including travel. And you may want to adjust the height. So, depending what you're doing, you may find different heights are more suitable, and you're going to have different heights depending on what the technique that you want to do. So I always suggest adjustable. Just make sure it's got a good quality locking system so that when you push down on it, it's not going to collapse. There's lots of, just look for a good quality I always cringe when I hear people say, oh, just, go to Walmart or Costco, get it. No, if you've got a chronic condition, look for quality, and that it can bear that weight. But I say go adjustable. I have
Do they do
collapsed
collapse?
arches.
That was the
Pardon
other
me, sir?
question. They do collapse so that people can travel?
Yes, if you have an adjustable pole, it can collapse. Okay, and I would say most poles are adjustable, but you can see here, you can actually bring it down. We've got another one that's shorter than this one. So they do fit in your suitcase. A lot of people ask me about traveling. I would suggest if you're traveling though, and you've got a carry on, you can't just carry them through security. You have to be using them through security. We haven't had anyone had them taken away, because if you just explain you're using it instead of a cane or a walker, they'll let you through security, but don't hold on to it, because then it looks like it's just for fitness, and you're not allowed to bring on equipment as a carry-on that is just for, for fitness. Oh yes, someone just asked me that on planes, but if you don't need it just for general walking, put it in your bag, put it on a suitcase that you can check in, put it on a diagonal, and it will fit in most mid-sized suitcases, but we do have a smaller one that will fit in the smaller suitcases. I have collapsed arches and arthritis that give me walking pain. Will Nordic Walking help an ex-marathoner? Absolutely. We have a lot of marathoners who are ex-marathoners. And I think just, what Lauren was just mentioning, I wish I could, give you guys the link to the next one I'm doing. But as I mentioned, I'm doing it with the Arthritis Foundation specifically because you offload onto the pole, and it will take pressure off hips, knees, and ankles. Most of the research has been done on knees, but of course that's going to help your ankles as well and your feet if you've got collapsed arches. Again, use the activator technique, because when you want to balance offloading, that's what we'll be talking about in the next one, happens when your pole is vertical, okay? Because you can just put more weight on it, right? And the more weight you are, if you think about it, you're offloading off your lower extremity joints. How much benefit would the poles have on spinal injuries? Yeah. Do use it. Of course, we use it here for spinal stenosis. We actually even use it for traumatic spinal injuries. Again, you would need to talk to your physical therapist. I don't want to advise anyone just from that, but I would say have a conversation with your therapist. You can show them our website. There's a ton of research on our website too, and hopefully that will just help to facilitate. But certainly post-surgery spinal stenosis is a very common use. It's actually protocol here in Vancouver, post-surgery.
Great.
So these are all amazing questions.
I don't see any additionals in the chat, and I know that you have a next on the hour seminar, Mandy, so I don't want to run us over. But if anybody has last minute thoughts or questions, please let us know. If you have not decided how many hot tamales are in the jar, please go ahead and post that right away, and we can see.
There's actually a winner, Lauren.
There's a winner?
Oh.
There is, yes. I know that I chatted you.
The exact number?
Not the exact, but the closest.
And who is that, George?
The winner is Mr. Timothy.
Yay!
Hey. So Timothy, if you I think that you and Camber are going to connect to see how we can get that bag over to you, but we'd love to get you some some Oak Street gifties over to you. Congrats, Tim.
That's great. And for those of you who didn't see, Tim's guess was 129. So what was the total, George?
It was well, when we started, it was 382, but then I think we're probably in the 360 range by now because
a little snacking this morning.
There was some snacking that was happening.
Very good. Well, thanks for that fun. And again, George, thank you for your sponsorship. Any other last minute questions, anyone, before we say goodbye to Mandy?
Just thank you.
Very good. Well, Mandy, thank you for your time.
Where in Greenville can we buy the brand?
It's not just, you have to go to their website, Stan.
Okay.
So again, that's urbanpolling.com.
Okay.
And you can let us know if anybody does end up using them. I'd love to hear how it goes. I'm thinking about it myself for different reasons. But I love finding out new ways to feel better. So thanks for joining us today.
Excuse me, just one quick question.
Yes.
Are there any plans for maybe having a class or some kind of a group walk?
We actually just, they're doing a class to train people in the Nordic Walking. And we shared that with all of our partners in therapy and medical here in Greenville. So we're hoping that some of our partners are going to participate in that class and then letting us know, if they become certified and they're able to do that, that would be something I'd love to be able to offer.
Yeah, that'd be wonderful.